Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education and the assistant chair of the music education department at Berkeley College of Music. And I am proud to present this podcast featuring disabled artists and arts educators. We are inviting artists with disabilities to be guest hosts for the Able Voices podcast. Today's guest host is Rivky Grossman. Rivky is a New York City-based singer-songwriter, recipient of the New York Arts Grant, has been nominated for the IMEA Awards, and has been selected for the New York Musical Theater's top female finalists in 2022. Her song, Hear Me Honey, was produced by Grammy-winning Amy Lee of Evanescence. Rivky's music has appeared on PBS's Mysteries of Mental Illness. Her career jump-started composing for Off-Broadway, meeting her friend and cellist Brian Saunders, releasing their first album, inviting them to the Kennedy Center, and stages featuring Suzanne Vega. Other projects include co-creating a musical currently in development with playwright Vincent Grappelli. Rivky currently hosts Melody Left Behind, celebrating performers living with schizophrenia, psychosis, autism, and those who experience the stage just a little differently, pushing the boundary to welcome more neurodiverse inclusion on mainstream music stages, which often doesn't exist for every unique artist.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Able Voices podcast. I'm your guest host today, and my name is Rivky. My pronouns are she, they. I'm queer, non-binary, light-skinned, with auburn short hair, beautifully flabby around my tummy and hips. Thanks so much for joining us as we continue to celebrate and spotlight disabled artists. I'm a disabled artist myself, and I'll be speaking with disabled artists where you'll get to listen to each of their unique stories and what they've been up to in their creative projects. Today on our segment, I'll be introducing you to a wonderful artist who goes by the name Rich Courage. But before I bring Rich onto our show, let me just give you a bit of background on this multi-talented, funny human. Born and bred 64-year-old Manhattanite, Rich Courage has called Manhattan home for his entire life, now living in the heart of Washington Heights, otherwise known as Manhattan's Little Dominican Republic. Rich is a natural-born performer, and throughout his career, he's done many roles, appearing in Broadway productions alongside James Woods and as a background actor in Law & Order. He's an actor, a playwright, comedian, a visual artist, and he's also a longtime Fountain House member for over 20 years. Having been hospitalized in the past for mental illness, he became a member of this organization in 2001, and then a peer counselor where he began to thrive. And just a bit of information on Fountain House. Fountain House originally started back in the 1940s by a small group of psychiatric patients who had been discharged from the hospital with no place to go. And they decided to form their own group, which would later become known as Fountain House, the clubhouse model for people living with serious mental illness today. And so perhaps through Fountain House, this is where Rich's story as an artist truly begins, where he now continues successfully selling his current tarot cards, magic-themed artwork, located right by the Met Museum of Art. He also began writing a play called The Very Last Dance of Homeless Joe, which was first formed at the New York Theater Winterfest of 2021 and was then later very well received for its world premiere on December 1st of 2022 through December 18th of 2022 at the Theater for the New City in Manhattan. The main character, Joe, is mostly based after Rich's own personal story. Rich also shares just a few things that he loves, one being bacon cheddar burgers, another is a well-known painting known as Starry Night, and perhaps most tender to him of all was the loving bond that Rich had with his dog, a beagle named Snoopy, passed away in 2019, a love which will always remain close and dear to Rich's heart. Well, first of all, hi, Rich. Welcome. How's it going?
Well, it's going great. I'm disabled, but I'm not stable. No, I'm stable.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to start off by asking you to tell us your story. Tell us your story as an artist. How did you start out? How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I was born on a cotton sack out in the fields because my mother had no money to pay for the hospital. Oh, wait, that's a line from Stud Turkle's Working. That's not my bio. Anyway, no, I was born in Brooklyn Methodist Hospital and to an ex-Polish patriot who was a Korean War veteran who met my mother when he was exhausted or probably wouldn't have got married. And she was this failed nightclub singer. and they fought like cats and dogs, and they had me. And anyway, he left when I was a kid, and fast forward years and years later, I was a child actor, and then I was a pushcart vendor. I had this wild sausage hero cart across the street from Radio City. And then in 1982, as things were getting good for me, everything exploded. My mother got sick and died just as we were finally forming a relationship. Lost my rent-controlled apartment, my job, my girlfriend, who that was actually a good thing because we really didn't love each other. We were just kind of like two lonely kids when we first met, stayed together because we thought nobody else would want us. And blah, 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 blah. And I was depressed really bad up into the 90s. Hospitalized 10, 13 times for major depression. Nothing worked, medicine, nothing. And eventually I was sitting on the steps of this wonderful day program called Postgraduate. Is this all right that I'm talking so long?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, I'm good with it. Yeah.
Postgraduate. I can't talk. It's the medication. No, postgraduate day program was this wonderful program on West 36th Street in this old church, this humongous theater. I mean, my God, it was like literally 4 or 5 stories high with wood ceilings and the big red curtains. The theater was so old, Rivky. It was part of the day program. They inherited it, and that's the only reason I was there. I didn't really go to the groups. The theater was so old, there were ashtrays on the back of the red velour seats. So I'm there, and why am I telling you this? Because the program I was in, the theater program that was part of the day program, ended. I don't know what I was going to do because I was in pain all day, every day. My depression was very physically painful. Had a lot of tension, had a lot of headaches, fatigue, all day, all night. It's amazing that I'm here. Anyway, I'm sitting on the steps, and I'm crying, and I see my friend Jonathan Glass, and he's got this painting under his arm. I said, would you buy something? He said, no. He said, Fountain Gallery is this place, Fountain House, this wonderful clubhouse, people with mental illness. They opened a gallery, and I'm going there to exhibit my art. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll tag along. And I walked in the gallery, and I saw this beautiful artwork, and I said, they'll never want my crap, and I walked out. And I went back, though, and started exhibiting little collage stuff I made, and I wound up at Fountain House. And fast forward to 2024, being part of this Fountain House community, this wonderful, welcoming, vital, vibrant staff and members are treat each other like human beings. Staff are still staff, still authority figures, but you get treated like a person. Changed my life. I feel so much better. It's not even funny.
Wow. So you'd say that you finally were heard for the first time when you entered this place called Fountain House. In some ways, you were finally heard and seen in a way.
Yes. I had been heard and seen before, but never by equals. Never by people who understood what suffering was. Constant suffering. Suffering that had no answer. Suffering that had no end. And even the staff, people who weren't suffering intrinsically, understood it emphatically.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing. It was wonderful. And the best part was, even though I didn't get better right away, it's like you build a muscle, it takes time, right? I would go and come back, and I was always welcome. I always had something to do. And I don't know, I can't pinpoint like, oh, one day I got out of bed and I felt great. But something happens there. A person starts to feel worthwhile. And something happens.
So, Rich, this might lead me into the next question. I mean, which maybe you partly answered, but you can continue anyway. Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences then and now as a person with a disability and as an artist with a disability? And I mean, I guess even within that question, maybe you can even add a little bit more about this place, called Fountain House. That sort of, helped you kind of jumpstart both, your artistry, but also, helping you with, the severity of the depression that you were talking about.
I want to correct myself. I said I couldn't pinpoint what helped, and I was wrong. I always forget. The magic of Fountain House is it's a place where people like me, and I'm speaking just for myself, but I think I'm speaking for a lot of people there, members and staff, a place to belong, a place I finally felt like I belonged, like I was home. No matter how long I stayed away, no matter how much time I spent there, if I spent all day there, all week, it was okay.
That's so beautiful.
Friendly, and it was welcoming, and it was peaceful and safe, and it just let me really discover myself
Yeah.
and develop my sense of self-worth, and I don't want to get all scientific and technical because I hate that mumbo jumbo, but it really, I started to feel better. As far as
Hmm.
my art, that's a really funny story. I was a peer counselor and I got laid off. Well, actually, I got fired. I had a big mouth. But it's okay for me to tell you that because they didn't want to fire me. It was like something I said, and I said to the wrong people, and it was like, well, we got to let you go, but we love you. We'll give you a letter of recommendation. So, which boggled my mind. I remember sitting back and thinking, oh, what was I doing as a peer counselor? This was back in 2022. It was on my birthday. It was February 10th. I had turned 6.
Oh.
Oh my God. I sat downstairs outside the fountain house and I felt relieved.
Uh-huh.
I still didn't answer your question. What is Fountain House? But let me just.
That's okay. Yeah. Go
So
ahead.
I felt relieved, and I'll tell you why. I was working as a peer counselor at a kiosk, which was a
Mhm.
booth on 45th and Broadway. So I was giving out coffee conversation, helping with benefits a little bit to people that were homeless. The ones I could help,
Mhm.
great. Get them at the Fountain House, find them a program, helping with housing. The ones I couldn't help, I was not like a doctor or a therapist that saw them once a week. I was seeing these people every day, all freaking day that I was there, and watching them not go to appointments, not sign paperwork, not get their IDs, not go into
Mhm.
drug programs,
Mhm.
not go to Fountain House. And it was starting to get to me. So when I got fired, it was actually the best thing that could have happened. And then I was like, what am I going to do? Well, I was a member of, like I said, this Fountain Gallery on 48th and 9th, which is a member, all the artists in the gallery are members, like 60 active members. And the gallery is run by a staff. But again, it's a Fountain House philosophy where the staff and members run the gallery together. They clean the toilets together. They man the desks together. They do the data entry together. It's a wonderful, cohesive. It's not a cult. People are like, oh, you're in a cult. No, 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 no. Anyway, so I had been in the Fountain Gallery and I had made collages of Spider-Man and Marvel superhero characters. It was just an image of Spider-Man, 100% of the image that I got off a card, and then 90, 80, 70, 60, and I built them up and made it 5D. Well, somebody handed me a deck of tarot cards, and I knew what they were, but I didn't know anything about them. And I said, wow, these are really pretty. The Fool, the Lovers, the Star. So I made copies of that, and I sliced that up, and I put them on a wood block, and I had this little 5D Star, a little 5D Fool, and started selling them in the gallery. The next thing you know, I'm selling them on the street. And now I sell my tarot artwork on 83rd and 5th, right by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's wonderful. They clean the sidewalk 5 times a day. It's Billionaires Rows. There's no stores. There's no sketchy people. There's nobody saying, give me a cigarette. Give me $1. Come on, you look like you got $1. And there's other artists there, and we have a lot of fun. We watch each other's
That's
stuff.
amazing.
So that's what I'm doing.
Wow. 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 No, that sounds pretty cool to be able to sell your art in a different space as well, where you're also able to focus just on sharing your art and not having any other stressors that may have affected you before.
There's stress sometimes. I still, I mean, I'm not like this, cartoon character where I have no stress and no fear and no depression. I still get
Sure, sure.
problems. But the problems, the depressions, the sadness, the fear,
Yeah.
the anxiety, they're three things. They come less often,
Hmm.
they're less intense,
Hmm.
and they don't last as long.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the magic.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, do you think that maybe we can talk a little bit about your play that you mentioned called The Very Last Dance of Homeless Joe? Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. About 2019, I wrote a little article. Fountain House has this little paper that they put out every week, a little newsletter type thing. And 4 or 8 pages. It's got who moved, who got a job, who's doing well, social event. But they like little articles, features that exist in the outside world, quote unquote. So I wrote a story based on truth, but it was fictionalized about a few people that I had met who were homeless. And I have this philosophy: there are no homeless people; there are only people who are homeless. Anyway, because I don't like labels. So
Mm.
I wrote this little thing about a guy who claimed he was Bernie Sanders' son, and he was kind of a throwback to the old hobos who traveled around, and another lady who was blind, and wanted to dance with Alvin Ailey, and now she lived on the street. And it caught on. People really liked it. Well, I turned it into a play, and fast forward to February, December 22, it played for 3 weeks, at Theater for the New City, which is an Off-Off-Broadway play. Now, I had to produce it, but it was a lot of fun. It's basically is a young woman like yourself, Rivky, decides she wants to write. She writes about people that are homeless, and she meets them one by one. She meets a Vietnam War vet and a woman who escaped from a psych hospital, and a couple other people. And it had a hopeful, not happy, but a hopeful ending. And it was a lot of fun. And it's on my YouTube channel, Rich Courage NYC. I might have a clip for it if you want to play it.
Yeah, so we're going to listen to a clip from one of your stage performances. And here's a clip that we'll be listening to right now.
Yes, and if you like the clip, you can send me an email at couragerichard@gmail.com. And if you don't like it, I never want to hear from you. Just kidding.
I fractured my leg and I can't work. Please, can you give me some money for some food?
My company laid me off and I can't find a job. Can you spare $1 for some food?
I lost everything. I have nothing. Can you give me something?
I fractured my leg and I
lost
can't work.
everything.
Please,
I have
can you give me
nothing.
some money for some food? I fractured my leg and I can't work. Please, can you give me something?
Can you spare $1 for some food?
I lost everything. I have nothing. Can you give me something? I lost everything. I have nothing. Can you give? Thanks.
Those folks, they were all somebody's baby once. They were clothed, fed, maybe even loved. Now they're just adrift, homeless and alone. And they're everywhere, in front of the fancy shops of Soho, beneath the bright billboards of Times Square, from the condos of Murray Hill to the cafes in Hell's Kitchen, East Village, West Village, Upper East Side, Upper West Side, from Wall Street to Washington Heights. The disenfranchised, the outcasts, society's lost and forgotten children, Manhattan's homeless people.
Rich, I know that our listeners would also like to hear about any of the arts education that you received, if you've received any kind of arts education, and can you talk about where you might have studied the arts or how you continue to learn today?
Well, it's funny you asked that because I have a very unique story. I was abducted by aliens when I was 22, and I was taken to the moon and learned how to sculpt wonderful images of nude women out of green cheese, which the moon is made of. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, no, I had no formal training with any art. And I found out this taking a photo or an image and cutting it out and superimposing it. Oh, I finally remembered the word I wanted to use 10 minutes ago. Superimposing it on another image. It's called paper toile, and paper toile it's pronounced, and it's paper Tole, and it's a method of doing this. Well, I didn't know that. I just started doing it on my own, and then I found out. Somebody said, "Oh, it's paper toile," and I was like, "Oh, is it really?" So that's how that happened. But I've had no formal training. In fact, I was in the Outsider Art Fair last year for the first time, and that's this wonderful fair on West 18th Street that happens every year. The Outsider Art Fair costs $35 to get in, which is a little prohibitive for poor people. But it's this wonderful fair. Everybody in it has had no formal training.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you say it's in Manhattan?
Yes.
Outsider Art Fair?
Yes.
Very cool.
It's in late February, early March.
So people can go check that out.
Yep.
Will you be there again? Will you be in?
They had to throw me out because I started cursing at one of the other. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. I may be there again. Yes,
Great.
I'll take a class. They'll say, well, now you have formal training. You can't come.
So everybody's included. Well, that's amazing. Rich, are you currently working on any projects like this summer, or has there been something especially meaningful to you that you've been doing this year? You did mention a new play in the works, perhaps?
Funny you should ask.
Please do tell.
Yeah, I wrote a play. I wrote a play this winter while I was out on the street. This crazy idea came to me about a young. I wrote this play called, and it's got the word dance in it again, Dancers in the Rain. And it's, may I tell you?
Oh, please do.
It's this young black gentleman who is gay. He's very flamboyantly dressed. He's in an old Italian-style bar, and he's sitting there and he's going, "Oh, bitch stood me up. Well, must have met somebody." And he says, "But it's a monsoon outside. Only a crazy person would come in." And then picture me. Well, you can't see me, but this big, heavy, old Polak with a bandana and tattoos and a Harley vest comes waltzing in and says, "You're in my seat." And they exchange some words, and but it gets a little funny, and then you find out they're best friends, and they have some dialogue, hilarity ensues, and then this tall goth chick walks in, and my character Mike is staring at her, and Bruce, the young gay black man, says, "Stop staring," and she looks at me and says, "What are you staring at?" And I point at her hair, which is like blood red and spiky. I say, "I'm not sure." And she says, "Well, what, you never did anything wild when you were a kid?" And I say, "Well, one night I banged a peacock and I was drunk. I thought you might be my kid." And the whole play is like that. It's very funny. And we did a reading of it, 2 readings of it at Fountain House.
Oh, how fun.
Fountain House is, because I still didn't tell you. And
Yeah,
it got rave laughter. Let me tell you real quick, because people say, he's mentioning Fountain House again. What the hell is Fountain House?
Oh, no, I'd love to hear. Yes, please tell the audience about Fountain House.
75 or so years ago, about 5 or 6 patients who had been inpatients in psychiatric hospitals decided they were tired of going back to the inpatient status. They wanted to stay in the world. And they all got together and said, at the time there was this new thing called AA. And they said, why don't we do that? Why don't we get together and talk to each other and see if we can not decompensate? They probably didn't say decompensate. They probably said get effed up. But anyway, so they all sat on the steps of the New York Public Library every week, or maybe a couple times a week, and it worked. They stopped going back to psychiatric hospital, or at least as often. And then this lady, Schermerhorn, is this rich old lady, got involved. They got a building and they got a staff, and it turned into this whole movement. Without going into the whole story, there's 350 clubhouses around the world. If you ask me, what did they do? They help you get back to work, back to school, back to life. It is really that.
Wow. They sound like such an incredible organization. Maybe we can also let folks know where to find Fountain House for those who might need it.
Yeah, well, they paid me big bucks to say that. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't get anything. They gave me my life back. Let's just put it that way. I have eternal gratitude.
Yeah.
But where they're located at 425 West 47th Street in Manhattan's Hell's Kitchen, and they're accessible on the web. Just Google Fountain House. They will give anybody a tour. You call them. You get their number and you call them. You can take a tour of the place. It's in an old, renovated mansion-style place. And it's wonderful. They have an education unit where you go and you get help getting. They're not going to get it for you. You can get help getting your GAD, your PhD. GAD? Yeah, your GAD diploma. No, your GED. Wow. There's a work unit where you can help get, small part-time job. The whole emphasis on Fountain House is, okay, I've really stepped away from life. I've stepped away from life. How do I step back in? I want to do it gradually, because I don't want to dive in, because if I dive in, I'll drown.
Wow.
So can you help me? Can you hold my hand? Can you teach me how to swim through the currents of anxiety and depression and mania and bipolarism and loneliness and low self-esteem and all that good stuff that's haunting me? And they say, sure, yeah, come on, we'll have a good time together. When you're not having a good time, we won't get on your case about it. And that's Fountain House.
That is so really a beautiful story, Rich. I mean, it sounds like they are such an important part, or rather, they really are your community, and like you put it, your home and your family, which is really such a powerful thing, right? Especially for those of us that may not have their own family. So that's really, really beautiful. And on that note, Rich, the last and final question of the afternoon.
Roll, please.
Rich, might you have some advice you'd like to share with some of our younger disabled artists out there who might just be starting out?
Yes, seek and you shall find, unless of course you dropped it in the street. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, young artists starting out, first of all, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be patient. I know that's the last thing any young person wants to hear. What do you mean patient? I want it now. I want it yesterday. Ain't gonna happen. If it does, great. But do what you love. Have faith in yourself. And this is going to sound a little weird, because it's not like there's a lot of stuff in the air nowadays about I'm going to manifest and I'm going to make things happen and I'm going to say it's all going to be good. I like that, but I like to say expect the best. My art is going to be beautiful. Everybody's going to love it. Everybody's going to buy it. I'm going to make exactly what I want. It's going to come out perfect every time. And then prepare for the worst. I'm going to screw up this painting. This photo didn't come out right. I didn't sell at a show, and have a backup plan. Well, what can I learn from this experience? What can I do instead? Maybe the experience is just one experience in a multitude of experiences. Maybe I didn't sell at one show, but it's just one show. You know, maybe it was raining that day and people didn't show up. Maybe people didn't want Impressionist art. Maybe they wanted, nude Pac-Man. Maybe they wanted, patience with yourself, kindness with yourself, gentleness with yourself. Listen to people. Listen to people. And I'm going on and on and on, but really, you just got to take your time with yourself and do what you love.
Yeah. Wow, Rich, thank you so, so very much for sharing all the different aspects of who you were and who you are today. You've come a long way, and it's really inspiring. It's been such a pleasure.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure, go ahead.
In my new play, it's a romantic comedy, but there's some serious stuff. And there's one part where this guy is talking about how he had to hold all these dogs while they were put to sleep. And he makes this comment. And they were fighting dogs. That's why they had to be put to sleep, because even though he saved the dogs from the fighting, they were too aggressive to be put anywhere with any home. So he says to his friend, "What kind?" I get choked up when I say this line. What kind of a world do we live in where souls who only want to learn how to love are taught to hurt? And I love that line. And I think I actually know the answer to that question. The kind of a world we live in is the kind you need to change. And you change it one soul at a time. And that's what Fountain House does.
Thank you so much, Rich. I mean, it's been such a pleasure having you on our show. And if anybody wants to check out Rich Courage's page, I'm assuming, Rich, that this is the correct website. It is www.richcourage.com.
They can go to my YouTube channel and watch the play, Rich Courage NYC, The Very Last Dance of Homeless Show.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I guess that is it for the questions. I thank you all for tuning in to the Able Voices podcast. And please do join us next time to hear the latest on these wonderful up-and-coming artists living with disabilities who are currently making incredible change and impact right now, just like Rich. And here's to looking towards a future where disability in arts culture is simply just part of our norm, right? I mean, let's continue pushing boundaries while we celebrate disabled artists within our mainstream arts and entertainment culture. And be sure to keep an eye out for Rich's new upcoming play called Dancers in the Rain, a romantic comedy which already has had some rave reviews over at Fountain House and Hell's Kitchen. Find more on Rich's work over at YouTube, and you can visit his website at www.richcourage.com. My name is Rivky, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much to Dr. Rhoda Bernard, founding managing director of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education, and to Daniel Martinez Del Campo, operations coordinator. See you next time. Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Able Voices is a production of the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education, led by me, Dr. Rhoda Bernard, the founding managing director. It is produced by Daniel Martinez Del Campo. The intro music is by Kai Levin, and our closing song is by Sebastian Batista. Kai and Sebastian are students in the arts education programs at the Berkeley Institute for Accessible Arts Education. If you would like to learn more about our work, find us online at berkeley.edu/BIAAE or email us at BIAAE@berkeley, that's LEE.edu.